So I'll,
Unless we hear otherwise that it's
Yep.
not, like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but I
yep,
don't.
I'll do some, yep, I'll take a look,
I mean, he
but,
can't help he got sick. He can't help it.
yep.
Okay.
And let's have a terrible heart here.
I just think it's more procedural versus,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's,
Like, I really could care less, but we should just be consistent and, okay, ready, guys? Hello, it is October 6th, 2021. It is 7 p.m. Call to order and roll call, please.
Mrs. Etter,
Here.
Mr. Naaman,
here.
Mr. Suchaki,
Here.
Mrs. Schuker,
Here.
Mr. Dobbins.
Present by way of Zoom video conference.
Okay, so we have 4 in-person present and 1 not in-person present, but here on Zoom. Mr. Dobbins. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. The board values and encourages public comment on education issues. Anyone having an interest in the actions of the board may participate during the public comments portion of the meeting. Please identify yourself on the board sign-in sheet. A copy of the board meeting agenda is available for review on our school district's website. Please silence your cell phone during the meeting. At this time, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 2, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Naaman. Any discussion? The only discussion I might want to add is that because Mr. Dobbins is with us via Zoom, he will not be voting on any items, but he will be able to participate, ask questions, and, work with us through the discussion. Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Schuker,
Aye.
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Next up, we have 4-0, geez. Okay, motion passes 4-0. Next up, presentations. I'll give it to Mrs. Houchin and Mr. Janitovich.
First off, I apologize for my shorts and shoes that Mr. Young was making fun of me for wearing, but I did want to say the reason is we had our evacuation drill, and I know Mr. Young's going to talk about it, but I couldn't be more proud of our staff and our students and what they were able to do and accomplish and during this time. I mean, it took us less than 2 minutes to get everybody from lockdown evacuated out, and then from that time, it took us 16 minutes to get from here all the way to Klima Gardens and have every single kid accounted for. And Mr. Burek randomly pulled 7 kids that we had no idea who he was pulling, and our teachers were able to identify who those 7 kids were. We were able to identify that they were missing, radio in, and we got it right. So if this was a real situation, we would have had 100% accountability for where everybody was, knowing that 7 kids were behind and who those kids were, and we'd be able to communicate that to our safety forces. So staff and students did a fantastic job, so I couldn't be more happy for that, how it went. So
Congratulations, it's awesome.
It's great.
It's
The
effective.
kids were amazing.
So we're here just out of conversation that has been coming around, and it really came to light during scheduling this past year for me, as we saw some of the things, and Mrs. Houchin, being a former Spanish teacher, has some expertise and some experience from the past. So we wanted to just kind of talk about what our current foreign language and world language programming looks like, and just some of the internal discussions that we've been having about what the future could hold, and if there's a possibility of expanding this programming to impact more students. Obviously these are very preliminary discussions. Just kind of want to let you guys know where we're at, what we're talking about, what we're thinking, and then at some point in time, as we have some further discussions with administration, with staff, with community members, would this be something that we would be worth investigating to expand within not only the high school, middle school, but down into the elementary version. So I do want to just kind of start where we're at with our offerings. Currently, we offer Spanish, and we only offer levels 1 through 3. We offer up to, the state, you can go 4, and then you can have advanced placement. Just because we have 1 full-time teacher, we run 6 sections of Spanish. So we run 3 sections of Spanish 1, 19, 23, and 23, which are pretty decent class sizes, then 2 sections of Spanish 2, and then 1 section of Spanish 3. So just by mathematics, we would not even be able to offer a 4th level of Spanish for those purposes. So we're really confined and limited to some of the options that we have. Here's a couple things that I was finding through the scheduling process. Students are electing to take CCP World Language because we're not offering Spanish 4. Some are saying then after Spanish 2, why would I continue into Spanish 3 if Spanish 4 isn't going to be offered? So currently right now we have 10 kids that are enrolled in a CCP World Language, and we have additional students that are going to be enrolled in second semester because they're involved in athletics now, so they're already taking a look at opportunities to get involved and take their language in a different spot. We also had multiple students that had to make a decision, and this kind of went, some of these kids went CCP route to go between, because we have so many singletons, AP Physics, there's only 1 section of it, AP Seminar, depending on the year, there's 1 or 2 sections running of it. There has to be a choice because we were limited where it was. So we didn't have flexibility with our Spanish teacher to be able to place some courses there. Some kids were shut out of Spanish because we didn't have the opportunity to provide them with the sections that were there. And we had multiple students that want AP Spanish and not. So it kind of got me thinking. So when Mrs. Thrasher and I were going through scheduling last year and we were talking about this, we were looking at this, where was the impact of it? Students were requesting it. They were meeting with her saying, I kind of wanted this opportunity. Knowing in the past we had other opportunities for Spanishes to be expanded or French or different languages. The question was why, what makes it different? Why don't we have it? I looked to other districts. So we always try to compare ourselves to Independence, Kirtland. Independence because they're our neighbor, Kirtland because they're a very similar demographic, they're similar size, they get similar test scores to us. Independence has 2 options for world language, levels 1 through 4 in Spanish, plus they go up to advanced placement option for their students. They also provide American Sign Language, which counts as a world language for students. Kirtland offers levels 1 through 4 in Spanish, plus advanced placement in Spanish, levels 1 through 4 in French, plus advanced placement. So those 2 schools are relatively our size in students, and they have the ability to provide those offerings. Additionally, Brooklyn, who is relatively our size, a little different demographics economically than us, but they offer a level 1 through 4 Spanish plus an AP option, and they offer a level 1 through 4 Mandarin Chinese. I don't know if they offer the AP. I wasn't able to find that option to us. So looking at comparative districts, obviously I could have gone into some of the bigger districts, and a lot of the bigger districts offer many different options because they have the flexibility, but I just kind of wanted to take a look at, some of the comparative districts to us offering only 1 option for a world language, and then we have other school districts that are offering more. So impact of adding, so I know I spoke a lot, but Mrs. Houchin has, will share a little bit about elementary part.
So we've been talking for several years, Mr. Evans and I, about trying to get some language down into the elementary level because that is the best time to learn a language, but also to get them interested in whether it's the culture, even if we're not teaching how to speak, culture, various cultures, because we really are in a bubble here. That's an important piece, I think, to expose our children to other cultures. As Mr. J said, I did teach Spanish back in prehistoric times, it feels like. But when I first got out of college with my teaching degree, I taught middle school Spanish. So I have a special place in my heart for foreign language. And it doesn't matter to me. I think we all know every school offers Spanish. There's a reason for that. That is the second language in the United States. Beyond that, I think any opportunity we have, it would be based on who the best teacher is. It doesn't matter to me whether it's Mandarin or sign language or French or whatever it is. When you are just opening up to another language, you can think about who is the person that we would want in our school. So at the elementary level, what we were talking about is the first couple of years with a new language, that teacher wouldn't have a full course load at the high school level. So we could bring them down to the elementary and do something with our 4th and 5th graders. So we've just been playing around with schedules and what it might look like, a lot of what ifs. But it would be an opportunity for our elementary students to get some exposure to other cultures, maybe, we aren't sure what it looks like, but maybe even be exposed to several different languages so that they have an idea of what they might want to take when they get to the high school level. But it would be another one of our essentials classes for 4th and 5th grade. Right now, they are in art, music, PE, and then they're in technology and library. And the other grades all have a science class that counts as one of their essentials. So right now, in order to give them that third essential, we're just kind of piecing it together with an extra technology class. But it would be really nice for them to have something else to be able, something useful to be able to experience in the elementary. So we have no set idea of what it might look like in terms of a schedule, but we were figuring that I could probably get someone for 2 periods a day, at least to start, to be able to do 4th and 5th grade.
And then obviously we would build on that when it comes to the middle school. The opportunities for students. So currently right now, to get an honors diploma in the state of Ohio, you need to have 3 years of a language. And if you don't have that, then you've eliminated one option for an honors diploma. So we have that right now. But if we're putting ourselves in a situation where kids have to make a decision, do I take AP Physics that I really want to take, or Spanish 3? Spanish 3 allows me to get to the honors diploma. That kind of takes away some of the opportunity that we have for kids to reach that. You can also reach an honors diploma by taking 2 years of 2 different languages. So if we ever came into a situation and the student was like, I really don't have an interest in taking 4 years, but I would take, Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and then whatever other world language was offered for 2 years, then they fulfill the 4 years of the world language. Most colleges are looking for 2 years of a foreign language. More of the competitive colleges are looking for 3. Some of them are looking for 4 years. That's obviously, only one small part of it. The middle school option, because we do have some flexibility with our flex period, with some of the different things that we have, there is opportunities to, we've thrown out opportunities. Is this an exposure thing? Is this a cultural thing? Or do we bring in the opportunity to provide languages starting in 8th grade for students? So then we could potentially go 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th through Spanish 4, and then AP, could be a 5th year, or for some students that are advanced, you could forego a Spanish 4 and make Spanish 4 really the AP, so they could take that and then they could potentially take another opportunity for advancement. So it really gives us some flexibility, some options, some opportunities, for kids. Like what are our next steps is really, and we've had the deep conversations all over the board, like what will this look like? What will this go through? But really, at some point, when if this materializes, and this is something that we feel as a district that it aligns to the goals of Cuyahoga Heights, we really want to get some student interest, obviously, because it's important to us. Obviously, we say we want to have the best teacher, but also we want to have the best things for kids, because kids might say, we don't have an interest in another language, we just want an option to take a Spanish 4. So that might rechange our thinking, like, okay, where do we go from here? So first ask the kids, do you want to have an opportunity to take 4 years of Spanish here at Cuyahoga Heights? If there's a resounding yes, we got to listen to that and figure out how we're going to make that happen. Having 2 different languages will decrease the load of what we currently have. Instead of maybe offering 3 sections of a Spanish 1, that would probably drop down to 2 sections and then maybe 2, so we'll have that ebb and flow of where we are. Ask kids just, will they want the opportunity to take a different language? There might be some kids that, we have a kid that's taking CCP Russian right now. So giving another option other than Spanish, would that be something they're interested in? Do they want to have the opportunity to just take 2 years of two different languages, just so they can get to 4 years, but they know that they're never going to get to the point where they'll have 4 years of Spanish? And what languages would they be interested in taking? We don't want to go down a road and say, hey, we're going to implement this language, and no kid signs up for that language, because that would be like, all right, now what? Where are we sitting there? So we need to see an interest, and we've had different conversations with different people. I know there's always the American Sign Language, which is the big one that people are interested in, but you have to be cautious to see, like, is that a novelty class that people wears off at times? I do know that Independence started with a half-time teacher for American Sign Language. Within a year, they had to go to a full-time Same thing Aurora, where I came from, they had a half-time, they had to go to a full-time because a lot of kids take it. I don't have longitudinal data on that class to see if that's something that's sustainable. But I do think that it's something there. So part of our process, in even if we start going down this road, would be gauging the student interest, seeing where that would lie, and then see, based off of that information, what our alignment is. Does this fit the goals of Cuyahoga Heights schools, and is this something that we feel is important to us as a district, as a community, to take it to that next level? So I just we wanted to present this to you to know that, we saw that that's an area where we feel we could strengthen ourselves. We feel that it's an area that could help us, our kids have opportunities, and I always look at it, where do kids feel that something is missing? And this was something through that scheduling process that kind of rang a bell to me that, ooh, this opportunity is missing. I wish I could have this opportunity. So, I don't know if you guys have questions now, or as we develop, as this kind of walks through, if it's something you guys want us to continuously update you on, or through Mr. Evans, if he wants to update you, if this is something that we're really interested in, let's start writing some course of studies and how this would look and what the process would be.
Yeah, I love the idea, especially the immersion at the elementary level and then the middle school level. I love that, especially like in Spanish, because they're gonna need. I mean, the business world is calling for people to speak Spanish and Mandarin. I mean, that's the demand, and just like you said, that's Spanish is the second language in the United States too. So I love it. Do we know if there's is there internal staff that speaks other languages that we could use their talents to as teachers right now? Do we know
Not
that?
certified, no.
Not certified. Okay.
Now, Nancy
Okay.
Wonyarka was the last one we had
I
that
see.
was licensed in French, and she
Okay.
retired 2 years ago.
So this would probably be like a new hire of some sort then.
Or we
So-
could coerce Nancy into coming back.
Yeah, it could be, yeah, exactly.
Teach one class.
The other thing that you might want to consider too is looking at the surveys of the students and the interest, because, obviously, the things that are really going to matter are those, I think, and maybe they don't even have an idea right now, it's as you get to the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, because that's where they're going to say, hey, I want to take 4 years of Spanish, but maybe they don't even know yet,
Right.
So it's almost you have to do that survey periodically, either annually or biannually to gauge those interests, I think, just to make sure that those interests don't change or whatever. I think that this is, I love the idea. I think it's great.
And with the survey, so one of the things that we did a little bit differently this year than we've done with scheduling in the past, we opened up our entire program of studies to all students to put what they might be interested in.
Okay.
In the past, it was hey, so it really opened our eyes to see here's where kids were flooding it. We haven't maybe run this class in 5 years, but
Yeah.
kids really wanted to take it. With speech, for example,
Okay.
it was something that hasn't been taught, but we had a lot of kids that were we want to take speech. We're interested in this class. So we're all right, let's look at what we can do and let's get this run. So we kind of gave student voice there. And I think through that process of scheduling, we'll be able to see where kids align. And we had talked, we have to be very tactical in implementing it in elementary school and middle school, so it is very neutral, so that they're getting exposure. So if we are providing 2 languages, as time presents itself, it won't just be maybe one person always being with the elementary and then always being in the middle school, because then that person's going to start building their area. We want it to be neutral, have exposure to both languages that we potentially offer,
great.
or potentially find somebody that's dual certified,
Yeah.
and then we
Right.
can bring in somebody, and now we might be
perfect.
able to offer, an offset of something else.
That was one
Yeah.
of the things we talked about, because when I taught the middle school program, it made the Spanish program at the high school explode.
Yes.
And then the other ones
See, yeah.
were dying off. So we wanted to make sure that we address that we aren't just trying to build up one program.
Yeah, actually, and that's great when you expose them to multiple cultures. Then that explosion is what you want. That's going to be
Right.
perfect, because then people are excited. I cannot wait to take,
Right.
Whatever. So in those sort of surveys where you got the feedback from the students, did they call out certain languages that they?
We haven't done these yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we only currently, because we only offer Spanish, we don't have any other languages currently in our program
Yep.
of studies.
Right.
But each year when we do our registration and kids put in any class that's offered, so we'll be able to tell is there a dwindling interest, is there an increased
Yeah.
interest, what grades have some of the higher
Got
interests,
it.
where is it coming from there? So yeah, we haven't run the surveys yet.
Okay.
I don't want to, kids to get maybe excited about something and then pull it back from them.
Sure,
That's
no,
not
makes sense.
a road we're fully gonna go down.
Sounds good. Yeah, I love it. That's great.
How long has it been that the school's only offered the one language? Because at one point there were more than one.
There was, I know when I was here as a teacher, there was French and Spanish.
Right.
Since I've been here, so this is year 9, only Spanish. We did have 1.5 Spanish teachers when I came here.
And-
So it's been 10 or more years since there was a second language.
It was when Mrs. Zelazny
Zelazny,
retired.
yeah.
I'm just glad you retired, I don't remember.
And then there was then Mrs. She's, huh? No, it'll come to me. Angela Kahn, Mrs. Kahn was the French teacher after Mrs. Zelazny, and then.
Yeah, Mr. Evans says 2010 was the last time that there was there were 2 languages in the high school. And
That's how long it's been, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Is there any thought if it can't be like a new hire or a new position to bring back that like one section of Spanish in 8th grade? Instead of running 3 sections of Spanish 1 in 9th grade, like, and again, I don't want to be doing your job,
If we
believe me,
brought-
but is that an option? Like,
The only issue with that is if we brought the one Spanish down, we still would have 3, 2, and 1. That wouldn't bring us to a Spanish 4.
okay. I will say too, and again, not trying to step on toes, I know in Lakewood, sometimes in the past, they've merged like a Spanish 3 and 4, so it's one class. I don't know what that looks like contractually. I know there's a lot of other factors that play into it, but where you merge like a 3 and a 4 or 4 and a 5, I don't know if that's an option, but just thinking of spreading it out.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what the surveys produce because, like I mentioned about, like, it's probably going to be Spanish and Mandarin because that's what's driving everything. But, like, it's also, like, probably cultural within the district, too. So there's a lot of Slovak and Polish where basically the families speak that. And I know that that's kind of, like, dying off now. But then, there's a lot of people that have, grandparents that speak Polish only, and so it would be interesting to hear about what the students
That
come
would be
back with.
interesting.
Yeah.
So.
You're thinking continuity, I detected a little bit of 5th and 6th grade when I heard high school, or maybe.
No,
No,
there's
no.
middle school in there too.
Yeah.
Middle school would be
It's
in
going to
there.
be continuous.
There would be continuous. It might be. The only scheduling conflict would be 7th grade. It could be a 6th, 8th, because of the way we run Project Lead the Way with all our requirements with PE, with Project Lead the Way. There might not be an option to get everybody to have that option to be exposed to it in 7th grade. So, obviously there needs to be creative scheduling in there. And that's something as we come through it. We wouldn't teach it wouldn't be a years, like a 1, 2, 3 program all the way up. It would be some level of exposure. So by the time that they hit whatever year they're taking their first year of their first language, whether it's 8th grade or 9th grade, they would have solid language foundations, which would help them with reading, which would help them with other aspects of their education. So there would be, under this, if we want to really maintain 2 languages, because I kind of did all the different maths to see, like, would we be able to sustain potentially a Spanish and French levels 1 through 4 at the high school, still maintain elementary school, and as long as our numbers don't blow up, because pretty much every kid in 9th grade takes a foreign language. So as you start shifting back and forth, we would be able to potentially sustain 1 through 4 of 2 different levels of a language at the high school, elementary exposure, and still keep those 2 periods with how the rotating the wheel goes through there. To add a 3rd one in there, it would be dependent on the number of kids that signed up to take it up to the high school.
Yeah, I like the mix of the 2 different languages too. I know my son took 3 years of Spanish, but then first year in college, he's taken Greek culture and language. So he's kind of was interested. He's like, hey, I want to learn some other languages too. So I think that's the opportunities are there. I think, and like I said, it would be interesting what the surveys are coming out with. So.
Very
If
good.
there's no any questions at any time, if you have anything for us, let us know, and we'll keep you updated if
When do you think you'll do the survey? Closer to the spring, or?
No, we would have to, if
No.
we're going to start moving forward with this interest, because January is when we start scheduling kids
Okay.
in.
So
So we
it's
would
gonna
have
be
to
now.
have a survey, an idea, a conversations with Mr. Evans, and then Mr. Evans would have to bring it to the board, like, is this something that we'll be able to move forward and
Okay.
complete a new hire with? And then once that is, then it's go time with all that.
We
information. So I'm
typically-
thinking around November-ish.
Yeah, we typically update and have the program of study for the next year approved at the December board meeting.
Okay.
And I know Mr. Evans has passionately said how much he would like to expand our world language program here.
Yeah.
Just the entire totality of it, not just at the high school, but starting in elementary school and having a seamless transition all the way through high school. So I know it's a focus of his, and I appreciate Mr. Janatovich and Mrs. Houchin taking the time out of their busy schedule. They're spinning plates. I think Mr. Suchaki, you gave me that visual the other night. We do a lot of spinning plates, so. Fantastic.
Okay.
All
I'm
right.
sorry, I was typing to Mark. He said he'll follow up with presenters on his own. Asked if he had any questions. Next up, Mr. Young, your presentation.
All right, fantastic. And I promise I don't plan to take too terribly long with this. Mr. Mucci always talks about wants and needs. I would say this is a want and a need at the same time. I certainly don't want it if it's going to mean that we have to reduce programming or reduce expansion of opportunities for our students. But in the role as assistant superintendent, part of my responsibilities is to be the director of transportation. And my grandfather drove a school bus for 30 years. So school buses and this part of my job has actually become a huge passion of mine over the last year and a half. I really feel grateful for the work that our school bus drivers do. My two coordinators, Kathy and Mary, do a fantastic job on all of my drivers. So this is in no means this transportation routing software concept, something I've been exploring for the past year. I've done it in cooperation with my two coordinators as well as Mr. Wallace. This is something that is not intended to eliminate personnel by any stretch of the imagination, but it is intended to improve our efficiency of school bus routing, not just of our regular routes. The biggest thing is the multiple routes we do with all of our sports trips. I mean, when you run 20 teams, multiple levels, 7th grade all the way through high school, we are traveling all over Northeast Ohio. We're looking at efficiency in routing, efficiency in the workflow, efficiency in the communication, and efficiency in data collection. We run an awful lot of trips. Mr. Muccio completes a T2 transportation report annually where he has to go through a pile of papers, probably 3 inches thick, where he has to add up how many miles we use versus the fuel costs to have an accurate determination about our transportation costs from the fiscal side. We have the ability to potentially bring that down to spreadsheets, Mr. Muccio, which would make you very happy. This is also a safety thing. There's a huge safety component to having routing software. We've had a bus breakdown, I think, twice this year with students on the bus on the way home. It's taken us about 20 to 25 minutes to respond to that and get communication to parents. This is something that's going to allow us to get that communication to parents almost immediately. If a bus goes down, we can send out push notifications to parents. If the student moves into the district and this bus route changes, we simply have to click this house is now a pickup and this house is no longer, and it reroutes and sends a notification. This is your new pickup time. This is your new drop-off time. We have the ability to do things very, very quickly, whereas right now we do it manually, and they do a fantastic job because my two coordinators, they know the streets of Cuyahoga Heights, Brooklyn Heights, and Valley View better than the people that live on the streets, I can promise you. They do it very quickly, but this can even improve that efficiency as well. So, and we're looking at potential expanding opportunities into the future with GPS. All right, being able to actually know where your child is, and I know that's important, but it can even get to the point where parents receive notifications on their phone that the child is 5 minutes from home. The child has entered the neighborhood. The child is around the block. However the parent decides to customize it, we can do that as well as the sports trips. All right, student has left Kirtland High School. Estimated arrival time is this. Yes, we can do it the old-fashioned way. So by no stretch of the imagination can we not do things the old-fashioned way, but it's 2021, and Right now, the company, and I looked at three different companies, and I've got the proposals for you, Transfinder, Edgelog, and BusBoss. Transfinder appears to be the most user-friendly, the most forward-thinking, cloud-based, safe, secure program that is out there from the three that I can see, the three most popular. I've just got some statistics for you. In the last several years, more than 300 school districts across the country have switched to Transfinder. 1 out of 5 students in the U.S. is routed with Transfinder software in the 2,000 school districts that they use. We have 150 school districts in Ohio. There's only approximately 600, so 25% of the school districts in Ohio are using Transfinder, and not 100% of the school districts are using transportation routing software. So I don't know the percentage of school districts that use it, but there are 150 clients in Ohio. 96 of those 150 were using another company and switched to Transfinder. 89 Ohio school districts have joined in the past 7 years. I know Rocky River is a local school district that uses Transfinder. Mr. Kelber, our athletic director, had reached out to their athletic director and gave it nothing but high remarks and talked about how much more efficient the routing process is for the plethora of trips that we send. I think Mrs. Topovich says between exiting trips and returning trips, we do about 1,200 of those a year. All right, so that's all of our various routes that we run. So there's a lot of paperwork that's involved that can be digital. The way it works, that's the Amazon Web Services is how the secure cloud environment it houses the data. We own the data. They do not sell the data to any third party. Mr. Wallace was very diligent about going through the data side of this in the security piece. We worry about that information, and it's something that they will manage and they house it in the cloud, but it belongs to us. And if at any time we discontinue a service, they do not do anything else with that data other than return it back to us. So I think the representative told me their person who runs their cloud service is a Harvard graduate, if that means anything. They said he's the smartest guy walking around Transfinder. So they feel very safe with this particular person. The way it works is this. We basically they have a map of our school district. In fact, this is East 71st Street. And what they do is they map out our district, and we physically go on and we put a dot on top of the house of every single house that receives school transportation. Okay? And then you hit route. We have 8 buses, route. We have 6 buses, route. And what it does is it routes the most efficient, fastest, fuel-efficient way of transporting students. We do that by hand, and we do a great job of it. Student moves in, we put another dot on top of the house. Student moves out, we unclick the dot. Hit reroute, updates everybody's times immediately. Parent receive push notification, this is your new bus route time. So, helps with our communication. But there's also a human element that has to still be part of this. So it's not all GPS map based. There is a human element. So for example, people at Transfinder said this is a really interesting area because this is Schaff Road, and we have Marengo Road that runs off of it. Well, we have a house that has a driveway on Marengo, but it has an address of East Schaff Road. All right, no offense to anybody who's out there listening that this happens to be your house, but Transfinder said, we don't know what to do with that. Do we send them down Marengo? Well, Kathy Toffler says, no, we can't take a bus down there. It's too narrow. We can't turn around. The address says Schaff Road. Where do we pick them up? Because there's no driveway there. And you said you do door-to-door pickups. So there's still a human element that has to be involved in this to make sure that, hey, you know what, this is too tight of a left turn. We can't do that. We never go down this city street. We never go down into this neighborhood. We have to do this, we have to do that. So you're able to manually go in and account for those things. You're able to also go in and say, hey, we just got 6 inches of rain and Canal Road is flooded. You're able to then go in and say, this street is no longer accessible, hit enter, and it reroutes the bus route and sends a notification to your parents, because of the flood today at this location, this is your new bus route for the day. All right, it can happen immediately. We can give unlimited view-only access internally to the school. We would control the workflow here, but If we give our secretaries access, we can say, okay, where is this student? Well, I'm a high school secretary. Well, I don't know where the elementary students are because I don't have access. Well, you do have access here. Oh, that student is here. Here's the bus, and here's the time to get picked up. Here's the time to get dropped off. We could give the board members access too. Not saying we will or that you need it, but we could give you access as well. But that's not to edit, that's only to view. We have very controlled parameters on who actually gets to go in and edit the information. But we're able to then have one place where this is housed for better communication should situations arise where people have questions. It can be used on a desktop, it can be used on a tablet, it can be used on your cell phone. Again, we've got the Stop Finder app that would come with this that allows us to communicate with parents. Now, this is not GPS-based. This is just an app-based thing where somebody would have to manually go in and say, you know, when I receive a call, bus 9's broken down, all right, rather than going through the process of, hey, Mr. Blados, we need to get the bus. Do we have another driver? Can we transport here? I'll meet you there. Oh, Mrs. Houchin, by the way, we have 25 kids who need to be individually notified. Oh, don't worry, Mr. Young. I spent 18 hours making all these remind lists for the bus route. We can save you time to do that. All I simply have to do is bus 9 notification, boom, goes out to the parents. Okay, so it saves her time, saves us time of communication. This is the most important piece for me, though. Behind the scenes is the field trip piece or the athletic trip piece. Mr. Wallace has developed his own system for doing this, but it's as perfect as Mr. Wallace is. The process does break down. Anytime there's some adjustment to the trip, that creates major breakdowns in our processes. This can make that more efficient because once a trip is entered, whoever's in a workflow, any adjustment to that trip, every person in that workflow is notified. If we include the driver in the workflow, then the driver knows that there's been a time change to that athletic trip. Hey, you know, we're not leaving at 2:30, we have to leave at 3:30, or this game is canceled, or all that is part of the workflow. In addition, you can create templates. So if you know you have a baseball team, we can load the roster, the coaches, emergency medical forms, all that information into the baseball template. Then we just simply have to go in and copy it and give the new location. Boom, we send it out. All right, we have all the student information there. And again, the approval process, we define who's part of that approval process. You know, the athletic secretary creates it, then the athletic director approves it, the athletic director approves it. If Mr. Janitovich wants to be part of that workflow, then it can go to him. After him, it can go to transportation coordinator. If we want that to go to me after that, it can do that as well. Too many hands in the cookie jar, but it's much more efficient. And again, you can control this on a desktop or you can do it all from your phone. So if Mr. Janitovich gets a call, you know, hey, there's been a change to the baseball game. I can't get a hold of Mr. Calver, can't get a hold of Mrs. Zink. Can you go in? If he has access, yeah, he goes in, he can make that adjustment. We got a field trip to Rocky River with our kindergarten kids. You know, there's some adjustment. Mrs. Houchin's going to get notifications. Hey, we decided to stop at McDonald's on the way home, okay, with 55 kindergartners, okay? So again, we're looking at improving our route planning. It's going to give us accurate maps using exact student locations. It's a system that has, you know, trust and endorsement from other school districts around Ohio. It's going to improve our internal communication, which is really important, that we try to minimize the errors that we make internally so that we all love each other at the end of the day. We want to improve parent communication. That's a huge piece. You know, if the bus is running late or the bus is broken down or there's been an adjustment because of you know, a road flooding, we're able to communicate that. And again, it's going to improve that field trip or that athletic trip process. Where can we go with this in the future? We would have the ability in the future to add GPS. We could actually add GPS units to all of our school buses, and now we're tracking our buses. We know exactly where they are, no matter where they are. You know, if it's in Kirtland at a football game, we would know exactly where they are, what time they left. We could receive that notification. That's down the road, so that's not part of this. This is just looking down the road. What would be able to do better analysis, get better analytics on our buses, accurate mileage, accurate fuel reports, things like that to help Mr. Muccio. Turn-by-turn navigation could be coming. You know, you talk to our drivers, they go to these obscure places. You know, it's nice to know that you have the ability to, if there's a detour or an accident on the highway, how am I going to get there now? There's that possibility. Student attendance, there's the option in the future to, you see up in the upper right-hand corner, you just badge in. That way we know, just like you do at the like we know which kid got on the bus, we know which kids got off the bus because they badge on, badge off. Okay, so.
Very long process, so this.
Yeah, this would be very efficient, and it's so helpful for attendance purposes with our youngsters. We don't want to leave a kid on the bus. We want to make sure that the parent that sent the kid to school, the kid actually got to school. We want to make sure that they get home. And so those are all important pieces for us. We can also do our pre-trip and post-trip by putting sensors at strategic locations around the bus. You actually take that device and you actually have to go and tap that you inspected the brake line, you inspected the compressor, you inspected the back of the bus to make sure no kids were lying and fell asleep. All right, we trust that our people are doing it, but this actually lets me know if they're doing it. All right, not that I'm watching, but we can't make any mistakes when it comes to transportation. So what's the cost of this? All right, those are our three costs. Year one is more than subsequent years. Year one cost for Transfinder is just over $13,000, which includes, so they say, about just under $8,000 in training and some other key features that would be important for us to transition. Subsequent years would be just under $7,000. So there would be a running cost. This is not including that GPS piece. That's the whole Cadillac, Maserati component. Edgelog, we found Edgelog is not web-based. All right, it doesn't have a cloud storage. We found it a little bit, it almost looked like the old Windows, like Microsoft Windows back from the late 1990s. It looked very archaic. Not that it was a bad program. It would be very good if we were a school district of 25,000 kids, 8,000 kids. Looked like it was something that would be bigger or better suited for a much bigger school district than, and they have a larger presence in New York, Texas, out in California, your higher population areas. Bus Boss is out of Pennsylvania. I had to take two different proposals to squeeze them together and pick and choose what was on there to kind of match what Transfinder had. It's a $14,755. Again, a little bit more archaic of a system, although they do have the ability to basically have that cloud-based component, but it's an add-on piece. Is that right, Mr. Wallace, so to speak? Yep. You'd have to pay extra for that, and then it's a little less annually, but every time there's a software update, you have to do retraining, and it's $750 a person, and you have to purchase the new software. Like, there was just some things in there that I didn't think maybe would fit. So if we were to go through with this, Transfinder would be probably the way I would go. If it's an important piece. Again, I'm not going to ask for something that would be purchased at the expense of expanding student opportunities. Although, as I said, safety and security, improvement of our workflow so that people are working smarter. They're already working harder. I want them to make sure they're working smarter so that we can maybe use people a little bit more efficiently and maybe a little bit more diversely along the way. So that's Transfinder transportation routing software. And again, it's something that if you think it would be valuable, just let me know and I'll bring it up at maybe the next board meeting. But if it's something you say, maybe we should pump the air brakes on for a year.
Good metaphor.
Well, we were prepared to bring this to you last spring. Actually, it was late last winter. It just felt like it was a little bit too much. I could feel my transportation coordinators getting stressed out, and I don't want to stress quality people out in transportation. It's something we would transition to and pilot through the rest of this year and then start to implement next school year. But I would want to try it out with a route. I would like to try it out, or with a single bus. I'd like to try out with a single team to see how it works. And if we see it's just a disaster, we don't even move on to year two. But if we see that it has large benefits, then we roll into year two ready to go, people properly trained, feeling comfortable, improving our communication with our parents. So.
I just have, okay.
Go ahead.
No, okay. There's a couple, you mentioned about the trial. Is there a possibility to trial this for like a month and then install the software and actually, or is it too cumbersome to install and and then roll it all out like that, just to try it on a bus or whatever.
Yeah,
just to see if it
and
works.
I'll give a summary. You might be better suited. They need to load in all of our student body. They need
Okay.
to load in the maps of our district.
I see.
So
Okay.
to trial
It's
it means we'd
too-
probably have to pay for the data and the
Yeah,
map
okay.
import.
That wouldn't-
We would
yeah,
have to
okay.
load in the students. So I don't know that would be,
That makes
you'd probably have to pay probably $5,000 to $6,000 just to be able to
Just to
pilot
load
it.
everything.
Now, that's
Yeah,
better than
so-
paying $13,000 to say we don't like
Yeah.
it. But it didn't seem that would be a possibility.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to ask is that, so like there's value with the communication that doesn't exist now that we will exist with this system, but there is a measurable piece of this though that maybe, I don't know if you maybe probably thought about. So like what is the manual efforts and the hours that are spent on the manual communication now? Because this in itself might pay for itself, because it's got to be astronomical to do, because if you're looking at a person that, I'm just doing numbers in my head here, they get paid $40,000 a year, and this is $13,000, you're looking at probably if you take out, they're here for, I don't know, say, 2,000 hours a year. If you look at it that way, that's 600 hours. If that's 600 hours, you're doing on, that manual effort already, this pays for itself. I mean, I don't know if that hourly, time is
Our
that.
coordinators probably spend about 2 weeks' worth of time coming up with the bus routes.
Yeah, wow.
And then that gets communicated to Mrs. Houchin, and then parents contact back and say, well, actually, the grandparent's going to have the kid after school, and so the morning route may not look the same as the afternoon route, and then
Yeah.
that goes to Mrs. Houchin, and then we have to post that.
That's all that.
So it's not that, like I said, I understand that it could save you an actual human
Well-
hours of doing this, but it's also redirecting some of the work, in
That's what-
a bus driver shortage era.
Yep.
Rather than spending our time on this management piece, we could
That's
spend
exactly what I'm
less
saying.
time on the management, even though we're still engaged with it, and potentially have more driving time,
Yeah.
for some of those special routes that we have, or some of those trips that we have.
That's
So
exactly
it's-
where I was going with this whole thing, is
Yep.
that piece of it. So like then, if you're looking at it from that perspective though, there's probably savings between because there will be automatic alerts that would go out from the system, I'm assuming, for hey, we're in Kirtland, we're a half hour away, I would imagine. So that, there's gotta be someone on the other end right now, if it's, Mr. Kelber or whatever, that's saying, hey, we just left Kirtland, and then I guess put the distribution list together, there's time in that too.
Absolutely.
So it's like, that's all included in that time that would be, and then I see that there's also incremental value with then the enhanced communication that way too, because there is no mistakes then. Well, there could be through a computer, but there's a less probably, and there's manual error, so
Right.
that would help out as well.
Right.
So that's the other thing. And then, do you have an idea of all the bells and whistles? If we would get the GPS features, what's the cost beyond the 13 and the 7 each year then?
Yeah, I actually had asked them, I want to say that it was about an additional $25,000,
Okay.
because they have to actually install the hardware. And Mr. Muccio says, just go to Best Buy and get a GPS unit.
Yeah, right. I understand.
Which is very practical, right? But it's that, they pair with Zonar, I believe it is.
Okay.
And they have to come in and they have to install the device, the receiver on
Okay.
each school bus, and then you have to buy the actual GPS unit itself.
I see.
And it would all integrate with the software you already have. And I wanted to
Got it.
say it was under $25,000. I could get the exact amount because it's in an email that I have,
It's
because
not-
I actually asked that, what would it cost to add on
Yeah.
these additional pieces? Because I was looking long-term,
Yeah,
if we see that there's a need for that. Now, some will say, hey, listen, there's something to be said for, parents, you got to trust the school.
We already track our kids on Life 360.
Yeah, you're already tracking your kids
Yeah.
with the family apps already,
We
but
really are. But I see other uses.
Yes, yeah.
in the school.
yeah, there are multiple uses for this, from, like I said, the pre and post trip, to the data analytics that we can get from the buses, to the routing of the software, to the workflow that goes into it, to saving time in many
Yes.
different athletics, building principals,
Absolutely.
transportation. Again, it's
Yeah.
not reducing human power, it's redirecting it. So instead of spending
That's-
20 hours creating remind lists based on bus routes, because they change all the time, you can spend that now working with teachers and team meetings, discussing data with kids so that we can actually look at programming as opposed to compiling remind lists
Yeah.
when the bus breaks down.
I wasn't at all like talking about reducing human
Yep.
headcount, but I'm actually was thinking along the same lines that those resources can be redirected to do other things as well then at that point, because this will make it more efficient. So there's
Absolutely.
value there for sure.
Yep.
So,
I just want to say, at some point, though, when you're becoming efficient with technology, you might be able to use less bodies
yeah.
doing it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I mean,
yeah.
if this is doing attendance and things like that, I mean, again, you know, I'm not saying that would be the first thing to go, but, you know, something like this could be an investment to take different tasks away from people
Absolutely.
and more efficiently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Could go the other way. It could actually take more work to do this, because now you have to update another set of databases. You have to update, you know, every time, you mentioned all I have to do is click on a dot. Well, there's got to be a backup. How did all those dots get there in the first place?
Yep.
Do we have some way to feed our data into their system?
Yeah, so
Or is
our
this an out
supervision
manual?
system
or-
will reach out to this system and pull in new students and everybody will.
It integrates with Progress Book.
It integrates.
That's one of the things we checked.
Okay,
They do
yeah,
integrate
so
with
I heard
Progress
that,
Book.
so- okay.
Yep.
Yes.
But I would,
So that makes sense.
And they also-
We already
Yeah.
have that data.
And any of the updates to their software, they don't charge us for their updates. They train us on how to use their updates. So that's a good piece, is that we don't have to continually
Yeah.
go back and check ourselves. Oh, we got the old version like that. Those updates happen with this service. So.
yeah, because I would imagine that the cost that you're talking about, that's only going to be implementation. Once that implementation is done, then there's going to be these updates that would have to
But
happen.
every year,
Yeah, well, every year you'd have to update,
Yeah,
but again,
update.
that's a
if
one-time
you're just
versus
feeding it
daily.
in, then it's not as significant.
Progress
a
Book is
concern.
automatic, though. When
Yeah.
you have a kid that withdraws or a kid that enters, well, it's usually 24 hours. I don't know if your system's quicker than ours. But it updates automatically. It's not
Yep.
something that manually someone's adding in when a kid registers. Well,
Right,
actually, parents are, I think, probably now. But
But it's only in one place and it
Yes,
flows
it
through
flows,
the
yes.
system.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to establish.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you have any, further questions, you can ask me after the meeting or some other point. And if you have major objections to this, please let Mr. Evans know so that we don't move forward with this at this time. And I, like I said, I would never sacrifice student programming for something like this, but we look at it, improving other parts of the organization. This is one of the areas that we were looking at, so,
I did have a question, though.
okay.
And that was, under the idea of maybe safety, is there a possibility that this could be paid for through some kind of state grant? If it is
Actually,
something that's in.
Yeah, potentially, especially if we're looking at those inspection pieces, because we're looking at safety and security that way, ensuring that students aren't left on a bus, ensuring that we're doing the inspections so that if there's any, and our people are doing it, but we don't want to miss anything either. We want to make sure, there's that
I'm just
potential.
wondering if, we're looking at an added cost here of something that we may want to implement, and maybe there's a way that it could be paid through a grant of some sort, under the idea of, this is a safety, safety of
Absolutely.
our children, safety of transportation, new technology that would help, and that even in that other added of the attendance aspect of it. I mean, that's a very important aspect of our safety of our children.
3 to 4 staff members, including Mr. Young, every day,
Right.
helping to do attendance on them.
Right,
Yep.
right.
That's makes sense.
And granted, I know that, this is not 100% of our students, but the majority of our students are bused.
But that's not something that's going to be there at the beginning, is it? I didn't catch.
What's that?
The automatic logging into the students.
No,
as
that
they
was
get
an
on and
additional
off.
cost.
That would be something that's down the
thing with
road.
the badges.
Something
But-
else, yeah.
But just think what you can do though, like that, and then, automatically each day, then whoever the call-ins come, that list can be reconciled about who comes off the bus. And then all of a sudden you can say, okay, these people are missing. where are they at? Now, those are the
Yep.
phone calls you need to, like, search.
We will definitely look at that.
Yeah.
I know Mr. Evans has communicated that the state considers us a wealthy district, so we don't qualify for much state grant money when it comes for the safety grant. Is that accurate, Mr. Wallace? That's accurate. He says that's accurate,
But we
so,
got some things, I mean, I know it was different circumstances, but different grants came up
sure.
this past year that we weren't expecting, and we used them in a good way. There may be something, I'm
Yep.
just saying, you know, safety was and did come up in the past as well.
Well, Mr. Mucci and I talk quite frequently when it comes to these types of things, that we want to make sure that we're being responsible with our resources, and if you're going to add something, you know, where might you be able to, you know, pull back a little bit so that you're not always spending, you're also maybe breaking even or saving along the way. So that's the part that we have to look at too, so, yes.
Can I ask on behalf of Mr. Dobbins, do you want to try to, oh, you're muted. Do you want to try to say it, or can I be your voice in the chat box, Mark?
Go ahead, Lindy, because I'm not sure how well.
Oh, we could hear you. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so my questions are, would the Transfinder software be incorporated into our safety plan? And what I was thinking of is, for example, would it be used to develop essentially customized routing plans when we have to do off-site safety drills? I know that's kind of getting in the weeds, but I'm just curious to know if it would be.
Yeah, you could absolutely create
And
custom
would-
situations.
Would our safety forces need access to, or would they be offered access
Mm-hmm.
to this data?
Yeah, we can create those custom routes so that if we have any type of special circumstance, like a special evacuation, or if we want to change a certain location, we could load those into the system, and then if we have to reroute that way, if that's the way we would choose to do it, we could absolutely do that.
Just like a field trip.
Yeah, just like a field trip.
Okay,
Last,
That's interesting, yeah, it's good.
last question, I promise. So with that $13,000 for the initial cost, does that include the implementation cost of it? Or is that internal resources that would do that? So is with Transfinder, like, use their resources to help you implement and create the feeds from Progress Book and all that? Is that included in that 13, or is
It
that
is.
basically internal?
Nope,
Okay,
that's included.
Perfect.
Yeah, everything's included.
nice.
Yeah, there's an itemized list of what's included and what their features are in the one
Beautiful.
quote that I gave you.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Mark, you're going to be moved.
Did you see though, here it says if we don't do this by October 30th?
They've changed that date for me 5 times, so
Okay,
if you tell me it's November, it's November. If they say it's next year, it's next year. So I'll keep working with them to adjust quotes if necessary.
and then this would be something, if we do pass this, accept this, to implement with the new school year? Or would it be something that would be something in this school year?
We would start piloting it ourselves, like, so we would pick a specific bus and some specific teams to actually implement in the spring.
Okay.
So that because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we don't implement something fully and then make all the mistakes.
Okay.
And then you got parents
Yeah.
angry at you, coaches. I don't need Mr. Martin upset with me because we sent him to the wrong football stadium, and I don't need to drop parents off or students off at the wrong house because we went automated and
Right. That's a
didn't
good-
train our
that's a
folks,
good
that's
plan,
why
too.
we're slow walking this,
Gotcha,
so
Just blame the robot.
understood.
blame the robot.
Thank you,
There is
Mr.
a-
Go on.
I'm sorry, there is an inconsistency between the chart on page 2 and the PowerPoint presentation on the cost. I don't know if that's because this doesn't have everything in it, or I'm looking at.
Talking about it says
or
now
maybe I'm
11
looking at the wrong place, because on page 3, if the numbers match.
Yeah,
If you go to page 3, that's everything.
Okay.
Total,
There was more stuff on the next.
yeah, they
Okay, I
added in on the
apologize.
next page,
I see.
the university live stream, which allows us to take online coursework
Yes,
plus
I-
certification.
I missed that, sorry. Okay.
Yep.
got it.
So I would just ask that, thank you, Mr. Young.
You're welcome.
But ask that board members, look it over, and if you have any feedback, to take it to Mr. Evans or Mr. Young.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, comments from the public. Looking at the sheet, it's empty, so we'll move on to item number 5, treasurer's business. Mr. Muccio, it's all you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schuker. Just 2 recommendations tonight. First one, 5A, motion to approve purchase orders over $5,000 is found in attachment T1. And 5B, Motion to approve the following then and now certificate pursuant to section 5705.41 of the Ohio Revised Code is hereby certified that both at the time of the making of this contract or order and at the date of the execution of this certificate, the amount required to pay this contract or order has been appropriated for the purpose of this contract or order and is in the treasury or in process of collection to the credit of the fund, free from any previous encumbrance. I ask for motions 5A.
At this time-
and B for-
And B. At this time, I'll take a motion to approve the treasurer's business consent agenda motions.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Naaman, seconded by Mr. Souchaki. Discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, 5A, the purchase orders over 5,000, we just have two. The first one is for PSI. That is for $74,740.50. That is a purchase order for the nursing services. We have both the nurse and the assistant in that $74,000, and we're in year 2 of a 3-year contract, which was initially board approved 6/10/2020. And the second purchase order is the emergency repair of the gas line at the high school, middle school. That's coming from our permanent improvement fund, and we have that purchase order at $30,000, and we had a more accurate quote come back to us the other day from Dalton Combustion, which was a hair underneath, so we'll release the remaining encumbrance on that $30,000 that's not spent. Mr. Evans had previously discussed the need for that emergency repair. Me and Mr. Young can try to fill in the gaps, but my understanding is there was a leak last week identified, and service was called out here to repair it, and it was determined that the leak was somewhere along the gas line, either underneath the parking lot behind the high school, middle school, or attached to the boiler. And that line was capped off, meaning it's no longer in use underneath the parking lot. And the new line will be on top of the school district. Mr. Young, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, they're going to tie in on the north side of the building. They're going to come up and over across the roof and then tie into the gas line just above where the entrance to the cafeteria is. That's a better option than digging up the entire back parking lot and replacing the line that way. So, yeah, so that's the option.
Obviously, it's got to meet all sorts of building codes and all that stuff, or you couldn't do that.
Absolutely.
5B is just a then and now. That goes back to the PSI, since we're doing the purchase order here, and we had an invoice, so it's all that refers to.
Any questions or any? Okay, hearing none.
Okay, Mr. Naaman.
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert.
Aye, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. And
Your
just a
discussions and comments.
couple items for discussion. First one, 7A. The 5-year forecast must be submitted by November 30th of each year and then again in May. It's that time again. We talked at the last board meeting for the timeline. I just have it again outlined here. So number 1, we would look to have a finance committee review of the draft forecast during the last week of October. I believe Mr. Dobbins and Mr. Naaman are on the finance committee, with Mr. Dobbins being the chair. So maybe target that last week. I should have everything ready the last week of October for us to maybe schedule a finance committee meeting, maybe Thursday, Friday of that week if it works out for everybody. But we can see, we can do one of those
Did you just say
duels.
Friday?
Did I say Friday?
You said
Yes.
Friday.
No.
Sorry.
How about Wednesday, the 27th, Mr. Muccio?
Yeah, we can look to do that. We can send a doodle out
Yeah.
and try to
Sure.
work on that.
That's not
So,
the board meeting, right? The 22nd is the board meeting, or the
20th is the meeting.
Yeah,
20th? Okay.
Yep, so that's 2 weeks from today.
And the first best committee meeting is October 21st, so we want to avoid that date.
Yep. Yep. And then number 2, November 3rd would be the work session to review the draft forecast. And number 3, November 17th would be the Board of Education meeting to approve the 5-year forecast. So tentative timeline that we have. 7B, final expenditure reports. Outside of Matt Young, is anybody else here familiar with final expenditure reports? FER, when I say that. No. So those are, at the end of the grant period, grantees are required to submit a final expenditure report, FER. The FER is a form submitted by the grantee, us, to demonstrate how grant funds were expended during the grant's period of availability. So typically, fiscal '21 is going to be 7/1, not to 6/30. 7/1, 6/30 is a fiscal year, but rather grants can extend to 9/30. So you're looking at a grant year of 7/1 to 9/30. The FER is typically due September 30th of each year unless stated otherwise in the grant application. And that came into use with some of the federal grants that came down. The broadband and the coronavirus relief had extended due dates for those FERs. Number 4, expenses are reported by object code and amounts must coincide with the entity's financial records. So what that means is when we do our budgets in what's called the CCIP, we have to account for where we're going to spend the grant funds via object code. And those object codes must be reflected accurately on our financial statements, because when we pull those reports and upload those to the system as well as send those to the Ohio Department of Education, everything's tracked by object code. So whatever we put in our budget by object code, and we look at the object codes for the 5-year forecast as well as all of our monthly reports. 100s are salaries, 200s are benefits and insurance, 400s are purchase services, 500s are supplies and materials, 600 is capital outlay. So whatever we go with for our budget, we're putting everything to the 500 supplies and materials or 400 purchase services. It has to reflect on the accounting side as well. That's where a lot of schools get dinged when they get audited by ODE. Their records don't match, and ODE uses that budget. They preliminarily approve it, saying that these are all allowable expenses. So there is oversight. There's a lot of oversight for federal grants that we have. So not only by the Auditor State's Office, which comes in and audits us once a year, but also by ODE. So ODE has to approve our plan for the grants as well as they look at the after effects of the grants. So once everything's been expended. Number 5, project cash requests, PCRs. So this is a form submitted by the grantee, us, to request grant funds for allowable expenses. The reported expenditure amounts are linked to the most current approved budget. So we can go in the CCIP and update our budget. So if we have everything located in the 500 object code, $20,000, let's say, for example, but we want to use it for purchase services, we'd have to go in there and revise that budget to move it from the 500 to a 400 object code. So then that would be the most recent budget, a 400 object code. And then we would have to submit a project cash request, which I do periodically, to get reimbursed for the funds that we expend for the federal grant funds. So whenever we spend grant funds, so let's say we spend $10,000 of the $20,000, I'm going to put in a request, what's called a PCR, to get reimbursed back for those funds that we expended. So we start at zero, we spend, and then we get lifted back up, get reimbursed on it for grant funds that we have. Number 6, any remaining payments due to grantees will automatically be generated once the FER is approved. So we have a couple, and I'll go through this when we talk about our FERs at a later meeting, but we have a couple payments that are still due to us. And once the FER is approved by the Ohio Department of Education, we'll see those final payments given back to us. So typically the last month of the fiscal year, or up until 9/30, any payments that we would have, we can't really generate a PCR at that time. I just wait to do the FER and it captures everything, so we get those final payments. Number 7, any unused funds will be reported on the FER and, if permitted, move forward to the next fiscal year. So we do have some carryover funds, some funds from our grants that we did not expend in fiscal year 2021. So those carryover funds, the funds that we didn't use, automatically get moved, if permitted, to the next subsequent fiscal year that we have, fiscal 22. Actually, Mr. Young and myself, we just sat down, and our FER for consolidated was just ODE grants approved Tuesday, I want to say. So we saw all the carryover amounts get populated, and we're working on budgeting those carryover amounts into the new fiscal year. Number 8, the FER form is submitted electronically via the Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan, which is CCIP, in our ODE accounts that we have. And then down below, I have that I'll give a presentation about our fiscal 21 final expenditure reports during a future work session meeting. Just to show, in here, there have been 2 years that we've been audited by ODE for our final expenditure reports, 2018 as well as 2020. So it looks like 2021 we're not going to be audited, which is good. So maybe 2022 we'll see an audit come down for that as well. Any questions on FERs? I know that there were some questions about how does that process work with our carryover funds in the future? So I figured it's a good work session presentation to have going forward. But I just wanted to touch base on this, that, again, in the red highlight that I have here, all fiscal 21 final expenditure reports have been submitted to the Ohio Department of Education before the due date that we have in place. So we had some that were due by 9/30, September 30th, and some that were due past that, but I just did everything by 9/30. So.
Still a question, how much do we have that carries over, like, for this year? Like, just approximate,
Yep, we have about $8,000 for Title I.
Okay.
For our EOEC, which is the, what's that acronym? Expanded Opportunity.
Opportunities.
Yep, that was about 1,600.
Okay.
We have about 2,800 carryover for our Title IIA and about $4,000 carried over for Title IV.
Okay,
Yep.
so about 14, 15,000
About,
probably.
yeah,
so-
yeah, in the ballpark of 15,000, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So that's the FERs. Again, we'll have a presentation on those. in the upcoming board meeting. 7C, school funding implementation. I have an email that was sent to us that forwarded to everybody, and I have it highlighted orange here on it. So the school funding implementation, so this is implementing the new funding formula, which we have in place since Governor DeWine had approved it. It says, while the department initially anticipated moving to the new funding calculations next month, which is this month, month of October, the enormity of these changes, will not allow for an October implementation. As a result, implementation of the new school funding formula will occur in December. It is important to note that this delay will not reduce the total amount of funding a school or district will generate in state funding during the 2021-22 school year. All school funding calculations are annualized. So what that means is we're not getting the state aid according to the new school funding model that was passed, the fair school funding formula. So we're still living off the old funding formula. ODE, what they're saying, they were hoping that everything would be implemented in October, but that's not the case because of, I guess what they're saying, the enormity of everything that's going on behind the scenes at ODE. So they're now saying that this will happen in December. So in December, we should see the adjusted funding for the new fair funding method by the Ohio Department of Education. So
Can we do an over and under on that?
I say it's.
Shouldn't say that on the record, but.
Yeah, I think December is kind of ambitious by OD, to be honest. We'll see, but we won't be shorted any amounts of money. Who this will affect will be larger school districts like the Clevelands, the Parmas, where their cash flow is really dependent on state aid. Luckily for us here, state aid accounts for less than 5% of our school funding that we have in our general fund. We get the majority from our property taxes. Not every school district is as lucky as that. Maple Heights, for example, is almost 50-50, if not more. So, yeah, those schools that are hoping for the additional funding, it's not going to take place till December or maybe thereafter. So their cash flow could be impacted by this decision by ODE. So a lot of schools, the larger ones, I'm sure that they're contacting ODE to say, can you please expedite this as quickly as possible. I'll close out of here. And the last comment I had tonight was just wanted to share a PowerPoint presentation. So Aaron Roush, who's the director at ODE of Budget and School Funding, created a PowerPoint presentation on the new Fair School Funding Plan. Aaron presented this September 16th to the Cuyahoga County School Treasurers. And again, I just wanted to share this with everybody at home and the board here. This is a PowerPoint that just has, some brief, it's about, I want to say 30, 40 slides. And again, Aaron Roush put this together. And it just has the bullet points, I would say, on the new school funding formula that's out there. So if anybody's curious, this PowerPoint presentation is going to forever be in our board docs that we have here, so anybody can click on this and read through it whenever they want to. And we'll talk more about this as our 5-year forecast helps along. If there are not any questions, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muccio. Is there anything from Mr. Dobbins? Are you looking at the screen?
No, I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. So moving on to superintendent's discussion comments, Mr. Young.
All right, just a few comments for this evening. As Mr. Janitovich mentioned at the beginning, we did have an evacuation drill today in cooperation with our safety forces from all three villages. The plan and the execution of the plan went overall seamlessly, but yet we have a whole list of items because we're always looking to improve about things that we can potentially adjust, and we'll be discussing that when Mr. Evans returns next week. Again, thanks to the staff, thanks to the students, thanks to my administrative team everybody was a pro today. It was silent the whole entire time. I'm so impressed with our students and our staff and how well they did. So, great job to them. And sadly, with the event in Texas today, it's a reminder that we probably don't do these drills enough. As Chief Sturgill mentioned, we haven't had a major fire incident since the 1920s, but yet we have almost weekly some event taking place in those schools. So just a reminder that it's real and we need to do these things diligently. So thanks to my team. Communication I sent out to all staff, dose 3 of the Pfizer vaccine is available to our staff. That's going to be on October 22nd. That's a Friday, and we're going to do that after school. The reason why we chose a Friday and after school is because of the varying side effects that people experience. Some experience none, and some experience those more severe. So we didn't want any disruption to the work, teaching, and learning environments. So those are going to be offered October 22nd for our staff members here. So if people have questions, they can contact me. Rite Aid administered our flu shots, then they did 2 doses of the vaccine for students and staff who hadn't received it that were interested, and they're going to come back and do the 3rd dose on a much larger scale right here in the media center.
Can I ask, has anybody heard, have people gotten the 3rd dose already?
Yeah, we have one staff member who's received
I'm just wondering,
it. We had one staff member, and she said she had very, probably severely mild is how side effects. Mr. Evans has told me that, a lot of the feedback is that you have the least amount of side effects for this dose of the 3 that you've received. So if you didn't have any with number 2, you're probably not going to have any with number 3. So
My wife got her 3rd month or so ago because she's immunocompromised.
Yes.
And she had no side effects at all.
Yeah, that's what Mr. Evans has communicated, that this dose has the minimum, and they're not calling it a booster, they're just calling it a 3rd dose. So that's why I refer to it as dose 3 as opposed to a booster. As you may know, the activity buses are back 3 days a week for students to participate in any type of after-school activity, whether it's tutoring, intervention, enrichment, even some of the clubs or athletic events. If students are here, they're interested, and things are available, even if it's only for an hour, they can come here to the library and wait out that next hour until our buses get back to take them home. We're going to do anything we can to have opportunities for our kids after school. We've initially fully committed to the month of October, and I have a feeling it's going to pick up, especially when middle school athletics start to pick up. Kids need to ride home, and Mr. Wallace has started his technology mentorship program, and he's had a student who used the activity bus yesterday to go home, and as that program grows, I think we're going to have more students using it. So Mrs. Houchin's been here 9 years. She says there's never been an activity bus in her time here. So we talk about it as if it happened yesterday, but which I think it's been more than a decade since we've had the activity bus. So it's really a great concept, and I'm hoping we can use it.
I remember my kids used it when they were here.
Right.
I used it.
And as we get used to it, as we get used to it, I think it's going to be something that's taken advantage of. And I'm grateful that I've got 3 drivers who are very excited to do that. So I want to make sure that they've got students to talk to after school as well. Last night was the 52nd annual George Gross Invitational over at Valley View Woods. Just a phenomenal event for the students from other schools, the parents, the families. Even Mr. Janitovich showed up and got a little excited, running around a little bit, chasing, cheering around the kids. It's just such a special event, and it's one of the oldest invitationals in the state of Ohio at 52 years strong. So in honor of not just a legendary person, but just a great person who influenced the lives of thousands and thousands of people. So a great tribute to him, and great job to Mr. Robinson who put on that event yesterday. State report card comes out October 14th, so that'll happen before the next board meeting. So I'm sure all the newspapers will get a hold of that, and even though there's no letter grades, they're going to find a way to rank us. So I already did a presentation to our full staff on the state report card, so that they've received that information prior to the rest of the world receiving it. But there will be no letter grades this year, but there will be data. New data is going to be the learning models. So what was your primary learning model? What's the percentage of time spent in the 3 learning models? You're also going to have information about access to computer hardware as well as connectivity. So there's going to be data on the report card about that as well. So some great things to celebrate on that report card, and places that we've already known and I've already talked about ad nauseum that are growth opportunities for us. But overall, pretty pleased. Pretty pleased with what'll come out. No school this Friday. It's NAOEA Day, so there will not be students and staff in the building. I'll be here, so feel free to stop up and say hi. A few of us will still be here. And finally, I just want to pass along condolences to one of our team members on the cleaning staff, Mrs. Forcione. She had an unexpected passing of her husband today. So she's just such a positive, brilliant, beautiful human being, and so sad for her, because I know today's a tough day for her. And definitely, as part of our Cuyahoga Heights family, I want to pass along our thoughts and condolences to her family. So that's all I've got for those comments.
All right, thank you. Next up, item 9, board policy and bylaw reviews. You're doing this too.
Okay.
Mr. Young.
Do you need water?
No, I'm good. Okay, I'm going to try to get us out of here. Although I understand policies are very important, and we want to make sure that we have an understanding of what the policy is. This is just a first reading, and we'll have 2 weeks to review. So I'm going to go through these. So the first 2 are lumped together: policy 5111 and 5111.02, eligibility of resident, non-resident students, and educational opportunities for military children. This is primarily aimed at the military families, is the reason for the update here. In 2009, Ohio joined the Interstate Compact for Educational Opportunities for Military Children through the passage of House Bill 1. That compact was created to address educational disruptions and barriers that children of military families face when families are transferred to new assignments. In support of Ohio's commitment to the compact, House Bill 244 was passed back in the summer. The bill requires districts to provide children of active duty military members with technology-based educational opportunities as they transition from one assignment location to another, whether it's in-state or out-of-state, until the time that those students can enroll in the new school. The bill also mandates that schools permit students of military families subject to relocation orders to apply for enrollment just like resident students, even if they don't reside in the district. So even though they're not here, we have to treat them as if they are enrolled. Once they are enrolled, we must be provided with proof of residence within 10 days of moving to the district. This becomes effective October 13th of 2021. So should we ever have any families, military families, who are transferring in or transferring out, until they land where they're going to go, we will ensure that they have every educational opportunity that they need. And if they're moving in, we'll make sure that they have it coming in as well, and communicate with those school districts. So it's just tightening that gap for military families, and these revisions are recommended to be adopted to have accurate policies. Policy 5336, care of students with diabetes. We actually we passed this back in the spring. It became effective back April 12th of 2021. There's been some slight adjustments to it, because here we're talking about the administration and storage and accessibility to glucagon for students with diabetes. It talks about specifically, a Board of Education may obtain the drug from a licensed health professional directly or through prescription. So if we're going to have this policy, which we have diabetic students and we should, we need to obtain a prescription in order to have that stored. Should we have staff administer it, we would have to train the staff. Our intent is to have the school nurse do the administering because that's the health professional. So we're going to work a lot of this through the school nurse, but the Board of Education must adopt a policy that includes the location and conditions under which the drug will be stored, who will administer the drug, and the training that must be provided, among other things. Districts which elect to adopt a policy and obtain the drug receive additional civil immunities as well. All right, so by having the policy and having all the components of policy in place, should an event happen that something didn't go well for the student, we would be protected, in the civil, from a civil suit. Okay, so I think it's important to have, if you don't have it, you're opening yourself up to potential civil lawsuit. If you have this in place, should an event happen, you would receive immunity. So this is recommended to be adopted should we choose to have glucagon for diabetic students. Policy 5350, the student mental health and suicide prevention. All right, this is going to be rolling out over the next couple years. This policy was updated to incorporate new requirements mandated by the Safety and Violence Education Students Act, also known as the SAVE Students Act, which was passed by the General Assembly during lame duck and became effective on March 24th of 2021. The act requires school districts to adopt or adapt evidence-based suicide awareness and prevention curriculum for use in staff in-service that has been approved by the Ohio Department of Education. So we will have to provide specific training that's been approved by the department for our staff with respect to suicide awareness and prevention. In addition, beginning in the 23-24 school year, the Safe Students Act also requires that school districts to include 1 hour or equivalent of one standard class period of health education in each of the following: suicide awareness and prevention, safety training and violence prevention, and social inclusion. And I've already spoken with members of our health department. In fact, Mr. Kovich told me tonight he's already reached out to somebody who's going to be coming in this year that is going to start this process 2 years ahead of time. So I'll make sure that he's working with Mr. Janitovich to ensure that that curriculum is included in our curriculum guide and that we have all those pieces, because what we want to do is I'd rather rely upon professionals who have experience dealing with suicide awareness and prevention deliver the message as opposed to our staff members directly delivering it. Because we're all trained to do what we do, and our staff we don't handle this on a daily basis, thank goodness. Others do, and those are the people who we should be tapping into, and so we'll be tapping into those resources. The policy reflects current law and should be adopted in order to maintain accurate policies. Policy 5464, early high school graduation. Again, it's a revised policy. This policy has been revised to reflect the changes in testing requirements and their impact on acceleration and graduation. Just notable things. The Ohio graduation test, the OGT. The OGT this is the last year for the OGT, so it's no longer going to be part of the requirement for students to take that to graduate high school. We're also talking about how acceleration through a program can lead to early graduation. It's a policy we already have, and this is just updating based on new updates to graduation requirements. Policy 5516, student hazing, again a revised policy. This policy was revised based on requirements of Senate Bill 126, which goes into effect in October of this year, so that's this month. While much of the legislation deals with hazing at the higher education, you may recall the incident that happened at Bowling Green earlier this year. There was a large response to the hazing policies, largely at higher education, especially with the criminal implications that come with that. There are implications for K-12 programs as well, including changes to definitions, coverage, and notifications and posting requirements, things that we're required to do through our student handbook, things that we're supposed to notify based through our website. So we have very specific notifications that are required annually, and this policy requires that we update some of our notifications that we see going out to our families. So the revision of this policy should be adopted to maintain accurate policies. And finally, 5630.01, positive behavior interventions and supports and limited use of restraint and seclusion. So PBIS, you've probably heard the acronym, something that was a recommended programming back in 2013 has now become requirement. And that requirement actually came back in 2018, and school districts had 3 years to implement required professional development in buildings that house K through 3 students, and then any grade levels in a K through 3 building. Has to be done by November 1st. Well, we fulfilled that requirement. That was the first layer. This is the second layer. We're looking at changes in definitions to restraint and seclusion. That's getting a lot. The goal is to keep kids in school, and the goal is to have processes in place that allow us to properly de-escalate, prevent us from just going to restraint and seclusion as a first option. All right, those are last options. And then requirements for school districts to have a PBIS framework in place, has to be communicated to staff, has to be, you have to receive training, and has certain accounting things that you have to do on the backside should you have to use restraint and seclusion. So this policy it's the biggest one. Most of these are one-page policies, two-page policies. This one is much larger. And you'll see there's been quite a bit of update as a response to changes to Ohio Administrative Code 3301, 3515. So these revisions to the policy should be adopted in order to maintain accurate policies. So the good thing is we're only going to have 3 batches of these. This is the second batch of policies. The next are going to deal primarily with financial as well as district communication. I believe that's another one that needs to be updated. There's one that has to do with school publications and your communication. So we've held off on that one until the next month. So that's all I have for the first reading of all of these revised policies.
Thank you so much. Next up, board discussions, comments. Mr. Dobbins, I'll start with you. You have anything that you want to share?
Nothing in particular, but I thought that for a future agenda item that we would be discussing probably capital conference scheduling or topics, maybe the next meeting.
Yep, I know Mr. Evans is aware of that, so I will give him a friendly reminder. I think he has a spreadsheet. I don't think he has sent it yet. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Naaman, I was zoning.
No, only one thing. So actually, I know that this wasn't mentioned before, but just want to congratulate Mr. Muccio and Kathy and Ulixa on the verbal, I know it's not an exit conference yet, but on your FY19 audit from the state as a clean audit. So again, congratulations. That's great, fantastic, because I know what it takes to be getting a clean audit and nothing significant or material. So I mean, that's fantastic news, and congratulations to you and your staff.
Yep, and I just want to say it's a team effort collectively here at the district. So it's, the treasurer's office is just one, cog in it. So, the assistant super's office, the principal's office, the superintendent's office, the board, everybody that we have here district-wide, it's all a team effort. So we're all on the same team and pulling the same rope in the same direction.
Absolutely. That's great. That's a good add. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Etter.
I just wanted to say, I think that the Tom Talks and other communications that are going out were very good. Especially the last one was very, there was a lot in it, and it was very interesting to read, and all the things that are happening in our district. And I did appreciate also the invoice that was sent, and it detailed everything that our communications people are doing. So I thought that was really good, and I hope that continues. I appreciate that. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Stuchaki.
Okay, well, from the Career Center, I have several things. I don't remember if I forwarded the news flash to everybody or not. There's an extra page there, Student Connection, which I'm going to pass along to Mrs.
Oh,
Schuster.
I didn't see that. Oh, that's cool.
Since Owen is being featured on the Student Connection.
That's a horrible picture.
Sorry.
Can I have it or no?
Yes, you can.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. There was a meeting of the the facility plan was covered at the meeting of the Building and Grounds Committee. I couldn't think of the name of it. It was a 5-year plan. It has been pretty much winding up in the 4th year. It's been extended, so we essentially have another 5-year plan going on, which is going to completely go all the way around the school, replacing all of the roofs, all of the glass block, which is leaking, all of the HVAC, which is 50 years old. They're redoing all of the support around the building. They've already started on it. They've done about a third, maybe already. So they're going to finish that project within the next 5 years. All of this is being done out of the general fund. And you have a question?
Yeah, just had one question. The architect working with the CVCC, isn't that GP?
Yes.
Yep, GPD, same one that we have, so just want to point that out.
Right, same architect, and that's one of the reasons why when GPD came up here, I was able to share with Mr. Evans, here's what we've already seen with them at the Career Center, so that when we brought it here to the board, he had that information. So I have that whole plan here if anybody's interested. The good thing is, even though we're expending quite a bit of money, it's $1 million a year roughly, we still show the general fund gradually increasing every year, even though we're spending that much money to maintain and upgrade the building. It is a 50-year-old building, so it does need some work, just like this one does. We're constantly working on the roofs and all that. And that, in part, happens positively because of the tax evaluation. Tax evaluation hits the Career Center differently than most districts because their entire millage is analogous to our inside millage. And as you know, inside millage, which is small, it's only 4 mills in this district, but it does go up with tax evaluations, or down with tax evaluations, as happened about 12 years ago or so. But the Career Center, their entire income is analogous to that. So it will go up proportionate to the tax evaluation. So we shouldn't have any problem continuing with the 5-year plan within the budget and not have to call on the reserves to make that happen. We'll be able to do it out of the annual income, basically. That's all good news.
Very good.
And that's all I have for the Career Center and for my report.
Okay. I have nothing. I'm just going to move forward.
You're allowed to have nothing.
Future agenda items, we'll put capital conference, the spreadsheet. I think he had said he was going to put it in the Wednesday, or not the Wednesday, the Friday update before our next meeting, so that way we could check off and then have that discussion. But I will gently remind him. Any other future agenda items? Hearing none. It should be noted that the Board of Education members receive their agendas several days prior to the actual meeting. Thus, they've had considerable opportunity to study it, ask questions, etc. Next, upcoming regular board meetings for this calendar year. Wednesdays at 7 p.m., October 20th, November 3rd, November 17th, and December 8th. At this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Naaman. He's quick tonight. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Schuker.
Aye.
Mr. Naaman.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. It is 8:38.